Yes, it must be Friday in America. But that's all right. It's Friday in America. Yay! Of course, for Democrats, it's different. Friday is not a happy occasion, but only because no day is a happy occasion. Unless you like firebombing and attacking the Jews, because the Democrats certainly like that. Every day is a good day for them. A very good Friday to you, and welcome back. We remain at 888-630-9625. I know it's not the Good Friday preceding Easter. And in fact, tomorrow in Rome, we have the funeral of Pope Francis. I have a few friends that are there participating as journalists and so on. And actually, I probably know a couple of other people that are there just as Catholics and not journalists at all. But that is a big, big event, quite obviously. And we have that coming up, looming. In fact, the service begins at 4 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow morning. So set your alarms, get up early. You can watch the sunrise, too. Good stuff going on in Rome. And then, of course, there will be the selection of a new pope by the College of Cardinals. And that's always a remarkable thing to watch. It doesn't even matter if you're a jihadi or a Democrat because, well, they love jihad, don't they? They've got a lot in common. So we've got that. We've got a lot of fun things for you today. President Trump's store made passing mention of this yesterday. Got the online Trump store, as we have the online Chris Plant store, too. We've got great stuff there. The Trump store offers a Trump 2028 hat. And the Democrats, that means ABC News and the rest, they're furious. They're really angry. Are they saying it's a constitutional violation? Is it the end of democracy? Do they need an Obama-appointed federal judge to intervene and stop the sale of Trump 2028 hats because it triggers the firebombers, the Democrat Party? But it's a fun one. On ABC News, they're very angry. Elsewhere, they're very angry because the Democrats are always angry about something. It's pretty amazing. The ABC fake news headline says, Trump store offers Trump 2028 hat amid tease that the president could run again for office. They're being mocked. They're being ridiculed. They're too dumb. They're too corrupt. Low IQ theater every day with these people. And the subheadline at ABC Fake News is, the 22nd Amendment bars Trump from running for a third term. Yeah, everybody knows that. Just take your medication, you bunch of mentally ill people, and put the bong down. Take your legitimate, big pharma medication, because just amazing stuff. So the merchandise website of the Trump organization is now selling hats that say Trump 2028, which appears to be a spin on Donald Trump's signature red Make America Great Again hat, after the president teased running for a third term in office earlier this year. Earlier, they do have a memory sometimes. Sometimes they don't remember Democrats rioting and looting and burning and shooting people, and they don't remember any of that. But they remember President Trump made fun of them long ago, and now he's making fun of them again. Maybe they should do a story, which they didn't do, on the instructor at Washington State University who violently attacked an immigrant from India wearing a Trump hat and beat him to the ground and pummeled him along with a left-wing student. And by the way, the instructor, the professor at Washington State University, when he did this, was wearing a lapel pin with the Soviet hammer and sickle on it because he's an out-of-the-closet communist. The biggest murderers in the history of the world. And the Democrat Party, maybe they're looking to unseat the Maoists and the Stalinists and become the biggest murderers in history. The hat, which appeared on the site on Thursday, is being sold for $50. It's an expensive baseball cap, isn't it? And the website adds that the hats are made in America. ABC's angry about that. How dare you make something in America? Just amazing stuff. Trump addressed speculation about running for president again. No, he didn't. He was mocking you and ridiculing you. despite being barred from doing so by the Constitution's 22nd Amendment. That's because Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a Democrat who stumbled us into World War II, was elected 4 times because the Democrat Party is a cult, and they've been a cult for a long, long time. But never mind that. So ABC is going crazy, bet guano once again, because of their many mental illnesses. Maybe you should sell a hat that's all about transgender kindergarten classes. Then the ABC News would applaud that. They'd be in favor of that. Isn't that amazing? Also, President Trump has ordered a probe. You know how in Washington everybody loves a good probe, especially an ever-expanding probe. The larger the probe, the more exciting it is to people in Washington, D.C. They welcome an extra-large, ever-expanding probe. And it kind of goes back to that kindergarten stuff, doesn't it? But Trump has ordered a probe into Democratic fundraising platform, Act Blue. It's called Act Blue. Who has contributed to Act Blue? Well, the suicide attacker that shot President Trump through the ear in Butler, Pennsylvania, he gave money to Act Blue. He didn't have a lot of money, but he gave what he could, from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs, as the Democratic Party likes to say. But their new slogan, of course, is, I am become death, destroyer of worlds. That's the new Democrat Party slogan. That should be their bumper sticker for 2028. Vote Democrat. I am become death, destroyer of worlds, because the Democrat Party. Also fun, the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, who actually did serve in Iraq as a United States Marine, unlike Tim Walz. Oh, and he's in the news again today, too, because he's, what is he threatening to destroy the world? It's these Democrats, they're drunk with the power that they have. Remarkable stuff. But J.D. Vance, he was in India negotiating trade with the good people of India. And on the way back, he stopped in Germany, also known to Democrats as Deutschland, where they once had a socialist workers' party, and now they don't. But we do, and that's the Democrat Party. J.D. Vance stopped in Germany, where he served beers, keg beers, to the American troops there in Germany, and also he autographed their keg. They have a kegerator there. It's a kegerator, keeps your keg cold and gives you a place to put it and stuff. And he autographed it because he's a normal person. You think Tim Walz would do that? He'd still be telling us that he served in Iraq and stuff when he didn't. Democrats have a lot of mental issues, not just the gender stuff and the sexual stuff. Oh, speaking of which, in Florida, because of Joe Biden and the Democrats, there was an arrest, and I have some of the sheriff to share with you today in Florida, because an illegal alien that the Democrats invited into the country under Joe Biden has been arrested for raping a 13-year-old boy, and the Democrats might actually prefer that because they're very, very unwell. Isn't that amazing? The Democrats, in the meantime, they're fighting for more illegal aliens. They want a lot more illegal aliens. The Democrat governor of the great state of Illinois, where I grew up to some extent, Democrat governor, the billionaire who inherited all of his money and hasn't earned anything, he just spends it. Democrat governor preparing to boycott El Salvador. Sure, El Salvador. Why? Because they're sending too many gang members? No. Over detention of alleged wife-beating MS-13 gangbanger. That's the Daily Caller headline there, and that is quite accurate, I've got to say. The Governor Pritzker, who has to go to the truck scales every year when he has his physical appointment. As governor, you got to have a physical, and they got to bring him to the truck scales. Illinois governor, Democrat governor, J.B. Pritzker, inheritor of billions, has instructed state officials to examine boycott options against El Salvador as a response to the Central American government's unwillingness to turn over an alleged MS-13 gang member tied to human smuggling, human trafficking, and domestic abuse. In fact, the big news today in the fake media is that the beaten wife of Abrego Garcia, Democrat Party hero, along with Luigi Mangione, they love murder because they're the left. Abrego Garcia's wife moves into safe house. Sure. After DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, shares her address on X. And she says, I don't feel safe when the government posts my address. That's Jennifer Vasquez Sura, who filed the restraining order. And in fact, what the government published was the restraining order that she filed against Kilmore Abrego Garcia, the MS-13 gang member, wife beater. In fact, you know, people keep saying wife beater. He first beat her before she married him, right? So it was just, she was pregnant at the time when the hero of the Democrat Party, Abrego Garcia, was beating her and leaving her bloodied, and she was filing for restraining orders. And then somehow, because the government is not always as efficient as we'd like it to be, the Department of Homeland Security, they made public the restraining order. And now the Washington Post is all over it. Oh, no, the poor, poor woman. She doesn't feel safe anymore. You'd be a lot less safe if your loving husband and baby daddy were in the house with you, based on the history that we're all aware of, just by the way. Jennifer Vasquez Sura, Abrego Garcia's wife, she was first the baby mother. They married in prison, because I think the foundation of every long-lasting relationship, every perfect marriage, is an incarcerated wedding. Don't you think? Isn't that amazing? So Jennifer Vasquez Sura, Abrego's wife, expressed grave fears over her family's safety. He's a baby daddy to one of her 3 kids, but never mind that. In an interview with the Washington Post, no kidding, the attention that her family has received, it's her family, don't you know, due to her husband's case, his case, is worrying, she said, especially after the Department of Homeland Security shared details about the family's whereabouts to millions of social media users. You know, you were quite famous before that happened. I've got it. Well, your loving and adoring and beating husband was, anyway. And they published what they published earlier this month, by the way. But now that it's the 25th of the month, now they're going to say, yeah, because, you know, isn't it amazing? That happened earlier this month. Abrego Garcia, she'd filed a restraining order, a protective order against the gang member, human trafficker, wife beater, and baby mama beater, Abrego Garcia, in 2021. And the order expired after a month. And that nobody's asked her, why did you withdraw the order? Why did you do that? And is it because you're afraid that MS-13 would murder you if you threaten him with prison? But we don't have a news media that asks questions like that. So I've got an update for you on that as well. Also, a Democrat judge has been arrested. I told you the first part of this story the other day. But the judge, Joel Cano, who I told you about the other day, has been arrested because he was sheltering a gang member from Venezuela, Tren de Aragua gang member. We just call him TDA around here because, you know, that's the Democrat Party. They shipped in so many foreign illegal alien gang members to the United States that we've come up with adoring abbreviations for Venezuelan gangs, like Tren de Aragua is now TDA. So we got that. Feds arrest former judge. He resigned the other day. That's why he's former. Accused of sheltering gang member at home. Now, he's been arrested and his wife have been arrested. They're Democrats. They're not on our side at all. Joel Cano and Nancy Cano charged with tampering with evidence and conspiracy to tamper. They should probably get well, how much do they want to give President Trump? How many years in prison? Like 130? We should give him, whatever that number is, 130 years in prison, something like that. The Democrat Party, not all cultures are created equal, and they're not all identical. And there are many Latin American countries where nobody would be shocked to hear that a 20-year-old illegal alien gang member sexually assaulted a 13-year-old boy. But Democrats then yell at me for saying it out loud because that's what Democrats are. Aren't they amazing? I've got that. Also, the Democrats they're pro-Tren de Aragua, they're pro-MS-13, they're anti-American, they're anti-motherhood, they're anti-everything good. and they're anti-Israel. But there is a Republican member of Congress who did not go to El Salvador to free gang members, but went to Israel because he wants an American hostage to be freed. The Democrat Party could not give a flying hoot about American hostages being held by Hamas, but they love murderous, wife-beating, and baby mama-beating gang members, your Democrat Party. I have an update on Luigi Mangione, who the Democrats love, and who's that Democrat, that statewide leader of the Democrat Party that has announced that he's leaving the Democrat Party, and why? Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. Is the Democratic Party dead? Far be it from me to suggest anything of the kind, but if you're a statewide leader of the Democrat Party, it might be an interesting point of discussion. Luigi Mangione, they love Luigi Mangione. He's in court today. No one will self-immolate outside of the courthouse there, in all probability, as they did outside the Trump courthouse, like the demented fanatics that they are. And just in case you're wondering whether there are any Democrats in the military, there are some Democrats in the military. I know this, if only because there's a Black Hawk helicopter pilot who says that his cache of LSD, which he does and sells and shares, is part of his religion. It's his religion. LSD is his religion. And therefore, ipso facto, the LSD doing, the acid doing U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter pilot. So, no, man, it's my religion, and I'm Rastafarian, too, so I have to smoke pot and do LSD because, Democrats. All right, Michael, let's go to the telephones. Uh-oh, look what I've done to the clock. Let's go to Rob, calling from Montgomery County, Maryland. Robert, you're on the Chris Plant Show. Rob, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning.
Hey.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Hey. Hey. Ho, ho. It's time for Joe to go.
We got rid of him. He's gone.
Yeah, where is Joe? You always say, where'd Joe go?
Yeah, where did he go?
But he popped up last week, right? He didn't get to go see the Pope. That's just such a shame. Anyway, on Earth Day, I stayed on hold for quite a while. I was going to try to get through because I did something very special on Earth Day.
You know what? I've run out the clock on you. I'm going to ask you to hang in there for a minute, Rob. My apologies, but hang in there for a minute. Okay, my apologies. That clock is quite a nuisance sometimes. Should also note that President Trump and Melania Trump leaving for Rome aboard Air Force One out of Joint Base Andrews this morning, and that tomorrow the Pope's funeral and President Trump and Melania Trump will be there for the Pope's funeral in Rome. Tomorrow is also Melania Trump's 55th birthday. So for her 55th birthday, President Trump got her a papal funeral, which is kind of an unusual gift to get your wife for any birthday, really. Let's go to my apologies, Rob. I'm this whole clock thing is so confusing to me, the march of time. But Rob, thanks for hanging in there, buddy. And you were just starting to tell me about your adventures.
Yeah, on Earth Day, I did something that few people really know about. I've been hunting morel mushrooms for almost 30 years. And it's a special place. It's like an adult Easter egg hunt, and I know lots and lots of people that love to it's a delicacy. They love to eat them. And I go on vacation and spend some quality time, finding these things away from people and noise. And I actually saw some posted signs up on the mountain, and it said, attention, no Democrats.
Get out of here. Where was that? Well, maybe you don't want to give it away because the left might go there and ruin it.
It's a secret place. I'll just say that it's kind of near something that's near and dear to a lot of people, where there was a major battle in the Civil War near Hagerstown. I'll just say it's fairly near.
I love it. I love it. And so, first of all, you're hunting morel mushroom. What kind of rifle do you use for hunting morel mushrooms?
You'd need a very small caliber to get these guys.
Very tiny.
I do compete with turkeys, though, because they do eat them. You know, the two-legged turkeys. Of course, there's human turkeys as well.
No kidding. But
I didn't see any. I had the whole place to myself. I was like a leprechaun.
And there's a sign that says "No Democrats, no lepers," since we brought leprechauns into it.
Hey, Chris, I have to say the two other things quick. I promise to make it quick.
You bet.
Who was it? Was it Howard Dean that said we need to have the permanent campaign?
That was Howard Dean. That? Yeah, he was very proud to have brought to inflicted upon us the permanent campaign. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and look what it's really bought everyone on that side of the fence, because like you've said many, many a time, they're not Democrats anymore. They're the left. They're I don't even know that they're the left. All I know is they're making our country bad and sad.
Yeah.
And they don't have anything good to say. And the only other thing I had was, with all these injunctions that are going on, I think it's time for President Trump, and the man's great. He's doing a fantastic job, and all of his people, so on and so forth. But he's going to need to call, in my opinion, a press conference and say the injunctions stop now. They stop now.
Well,
I'm the chief executive. The people elected me, and it's going to stop. Because if they don't stop this, he's not going to be able to continue to do the things that are important, especially the illegal situation. So that was really all I wanted to comment on. But
well, it's a lot of good stuff, and you're right, of course. And it's a small handful, like a little bus, the little bus that goes to school. Just that size busload of Democrat judges that are planning on tying up, and the Democrats through lawfare, using our judicial system to tie up their political enemies, and we are their enemies. I know this because that's what they call us out loud. And they're planning on using the courts to tie up this administration. And the more successful they are, the more the precedent will be set that every administration will be tied up in court forever. And any tin pot, northern Arizona Democrat judge can be called upon by some left-wing group to interfere with, hey, we've cured cancer. And the Democrats will jump in and say, we want more cancer, because they're whatever Trump is for, they're against. And you're right, the bad, sad country that they're turning us into with the gangs. And it does remind me, Rob, of Barack Obama declaring we're 5 days away from the fundamental transformation of America.
Oh, yeah.
And then he warned us all to teach our children to learn Spanish, because he knows that the left has a long-term plan for the United States, and that is that it will be taken over by Latin American gangs, and we'll have people hanging upside down from bridges in no time, like we live in cartel land, because the Democrats, And Barack Obama, they're as I like to say, Rob, they're not on our side.
Instead of worrying about whether immigrants can learn English, they'll learn English. You need to make sure your child can speak Spanish.
Yeah, I need to learn to speak Spanish for sure. Isn't that amazing? And he also told us that his plan was the fundamental transformation of America, and the Democrats all screamed and clapped, and they went wild.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
And they all cheer, because they're like, it's like Munich 1933 when the Socialist Workers' Party arrived there. Aren't they amazing?
Oh, yeah.
Their heroes are Luigi Mangione and Mahmoud Khalil, and their heroes are MS-13 gang members and Tren de Aragua gang members, the Democrat Party. They're insane. And I'll tell you what, because there is a fun story out of Florida that I want to share with you about the state of the Democrat Party as well. But, Rob, I love your story about hunting. I like the use of the word hunting there. Morel mushrooms, and we won't give away where that is. And great that there's a sign going into the area, the woods, that says no Democrats, because they don't want to find any, bodies in shallow graves a couple of weeks later. as we spend so much time talking about with the Democrats and Prince George's County and every place else. Rob, and I love the fact that you're laughing about everything, too.
I've been on vacation. That's why.
Oh, that's good. That's very good. I'm happy to hear all that. That's you're doing great. That is wonderful stuff. And you're right. Turning the country sad, bad. And with that, Rob, thank you very much. But I was something came to mind yesterday when I was driving in Washington D.C. and I will say that in the 1990s, when there was a war going on in Bosnia, and I was assigned to the Pentagon and covering the military and the intelligence community at the time, and we would fly in and out of Bosnia now and then, in and out of Sarajevo and Tuzla and Task Force Eagle, and we go into Croatia and go here and there, mostly Bosnia-Herzegovina itself. And I remember one of my first trips to Sarajevo while the war was going on, and there were snipers up in the mountains and they made the place quite awful, quite miserable. And that really was, to a large extent, because of the remnants of the Soviet Union and communism, because they just murder everybody and they create war everywhere they go. And now they're here, and I'm legitimately concerned about the direction the country is taking. But I remember being in a vehicle in Sarajevo, and I'd have to go look at some paperwork to type 90, something, or 94, 95, and I'd have to go look. I always forget what year it is. I don't know why, but I always do. And I was in a car in Sarajevo, and a little bit of traffic, and a cable car came up next to me, and on tracks just for public transportation, and a cable car came up next to me, and I looked. I was in the front passenger seat of the car, and I looked up, and there were people in the cable car, and they all looked so grim. They were in a war zone, and it's their home city and their home nation and all of that at war. And I looked up, and I still remember this woman, a young woman, early 20s, standing up because nobody gave up their seat. None of the men gave up their seat, standing up in the cable car. And she was a literal strap hanger, had her right arm up in the air. She's holding on to the strap or the bar on the top of the cable car. And I looked at this woman, and she was, I would say, a very attractive young woman, a beautiful young woman. And she was standing in the cable car. And I looked at her, and we were stopped side by side. And the pain on her face, the misery, the unhappiness on her face, still haunts me to this day. It doesn't still haunt me to this day, but I remember it vividly to this day, because I thought, wow, that's the face of tragedy, the face of sadness. It's the face of Bosnia-Herzegovina and the war and Sarajevo. And I remember the woman's face, long, dark hair, lean, beautiful. It turned out we didn't know all these beautiful women were behind the Iron Curtain. They kept that a secret pretty well. And Melania Trump, young Melania Trump, was back there. But I saw this woman on the cable car, and her face just struck me. The pain and the misery struck me. And yesterday I was driving in Washington, D.C., and I was watching people crossing the street downtown on 14th Street, and where was I? Probably H like Henry Street. And there were young women crossing the street, just crossing the street from one side to the other. And I looked at their faces, and I was reminded of this woman on the cable car in Sarajevo, because the looks on their faces were not looks of joy, of happiness. They weren't smiling. They weren't laughing. They weren't making eye contact with people. And I was reminded of Sarajevo, and I couldn't help but think, this is what the Democrat Party is doing to the United States of America, not just with, but doing to. And when the left gains power, the good times do not roll, except out of town. They move out. And the looks on people's faces and the lack of normal American style happiness and pleasure, worthy of note. And I would, don't go around looking for misery or anything, but just notice that as you go through your daily life, that the mood of the country is different. And I would argue, and I think I could present a pretty good case in court, It's the left making everyone miserable and creating conflict and trying to pit everyone against one another and at everybody's throats. And Trump, Orange Man bad. He's going to destroy the Constitution. He's going to destroy democracy. And the usual, just the madness, the insane rhetoric of the left. And it's very dangerous. It really is very dangerous. But the Democrats, this is who they are, because they're the left, and this is what the left brings every place they go. That and illegal alien little boy rapists. They like that too. You're done. Wait till I get Congresswoman Frederica Winfield, because, it's Wilson, Frederica Wilson, because she was out in front of the cameras yesterday, and boy, she is completely insane. And the Democrats trying to get gangbangers out of prison in Latin America to bring them back here and let them loose. Well, if you're a Republican member of Congress, you might go to Israel to talk about Americans being murdered and held hostage by radical Islamic terrorist groups. Here in the United States, Democrats are actually celebrating and promoting radical Islamic terrorist groups, which is what Mahmoud Khalil, a hero of the Democrat Party, is here to do. Aren't they amazing? Yes, they are. Now, here's a fun story. The New York Times has the headline, Florida Democratic Party is dead. The word dead in quotation marks. And it is, again, this is the New York Times. They're radical left-wing extremists. The Florida Democratic Party is dead, state senator says, as he leaves it. That's the New York Times headline. The slightly more user-friendly story. Top Democrat in the Florida State Senate says his party is dead and registers as an independent. Couldn't possibly become a Republican because Trump and Orange Man bad and all that stuff. Jason Pizzo, P-I-Z-Z-O, is the Democrat in Florida, said that he had sent in a voter registration form to change his party affiliation to no party affiliation. Now, who is this guy? Well, he's a Florida state senator, a Democrat, and he's the state Senate minority leader. That is to say that he's the Democrat leader in the Florida State Senate, and the Democrats are in the minority. But Florida State Senator, minority leader, Jason Pizzo, announced Thursday that he's leaving the Democratic Party. Here's the issue, he said. The Democratic Party in Florida is dead, Pizzo said in remarks on the Senate floor. He said that he had sent a voter registration form to change his party affiliation to no party affiliation because nothing is better than the Democratic Party. Pizzo said the state's political system resembled the infighting power struggles, corruption, and decline of civic virtue that pervaded and eventually ushered in the fall of Rome. The fall of Rome. And it also, the Democrats, they ushered in the Civil War in the 1860s because the Democrat Party really hasn't changed much. He says, so too are we players, or perhaps props, in the mess that is bottom partisanship. He calls it bottom partisanship. Isn't that amazing? So Pizzo is considered to be a potential candidate for governor next year. Said he felt liberated by his decision. The Democrat leader in the Florida State Senate is no longer a Democrat. He's talking about running for governor next year as a nobody, as no party. It reminds me of the Yippies. The Yippies were kind of like the hippies, but more political. And the Yippies used to chant, nobody for president, nobody for president. And they chant it again and again. You know how the left is. They latch onto a bumper sticker length sentence, and it becomes the center of their existence, the Democrat Party. So, yeah, the fall of Rome. And, more recently, the 1860s, because the Democrat Party, one of the most, we'll get to this, but the Democrat Party Democrat Party should be ceased. It should be halted. They should fold up their criminal tents and go to wherever they want to go. Maybe El Salvador, maybe Gaza, places that would be good for Democrats. Aren't they amazing? Ronald Reagan left the Democratic Party. I left the Democratic Party. Donald Trump left the Democratic Party. Everyone should leave the Democratic Party. Yes. All right, we've got a lot of news. President Trump has already spoken today before leaving the White House for Joint Base Andrews, which will have him boarding Air Force One and flying to Rome for the funeral of Pope Francis tomorrow on Melania's birthday, 55th birthday. Let's go to quite a gift from the president. Let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Matt calling from St. Louis, Missouri. Matthew, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, Chris. Happy Friday in Deportopia. And I know you've had a long-standing struggle with the clock with callers, so I'd like to gift you a subscription to the Kamala Harris Masterclass on the significance of the passage of time. And another thing I wanted to tell you, I think I know why the left, why the Democrats and the media are so melting down over Kilmore Garcia. They don't follow news, as you point out frequently, and they don't realize that Val Kilmer passed away recently. So I think they think Kilmer is Val Kilmer and that ICE took Iceman and they want their Iceman back. So I think that's why they're so free.
That is good. That is a possible explanation. Now, Kilmore, Abrego Garcia, you think they've confused with Val Kilmer, and Immigration Customs Enforcement, you think they've confused with the Val Kilmer character in Top Fun, and they think he's a great American fighter pilot, so they want him freed.
Right. They want their Iceman back from ICE.
It's as good as any other possible explanation, isn't it?
I think so.
That's pretty good stuff. I like it very much. Iceman, yeah, and Val Kilmer.
Hey, another quick thought, if you have time. I know it doesn't work this way, but I'd love it if they took home rule away from D.C., if Trump would appoint Elon Musk mayor of D.C., just to watch the left's head explode and D.C. residents' heads explode.
I think that's an excellent idea. I think that Congress would have to do that. But I am in favor of taking away home rule, and I live here. I don't think we should be allowed to elect our leaders. I'm really glad we don't have senators and we don't have a member of the House of Representatives. It's best for everyone.